Hi, it's Friday again, and it's lovely to be here with you. It's the ABU lunchtime learning session. And today I am absolutely thrilled to have my very good friend, Lisette Schuiemaker. I hope I pronounced that right, Lisette. I'm
very good. You've had, years of practice. I can hear that.
I do my best. Yes, Lisette and I, as you might have seen from some of the photos that I've posted this week, we go back a very long way. And so Lisette and I met when we were 8 years old. Our mothers were at university together, which shows what progressive women they were for their ages. And obviously, Lisette's mum was Dutch, my mum's English. They were at university in Geneva, and they were best friends there. And Lisette and I met for the first time when we were 8, because Lisette's family, which was at that point 2 parents and 3 children, I think.
My mother was pregnant of my youngest.
Was, yes, yeah. Yes. Came to stay with my family for a holiday in Suffolk by the sea in Aldborough. And we spent 2 weeks together. None of us had ever met before. We were actually very different kinds of families. But Lisette and I really bonded. And we've kept in touch over the many years in between. And we think that part of that is because we were both the eldest daughters of the family. So Lisette, I'm going to ask you to go back to the beginning of your journey and where you became and decided that you needed to become an expert in eldest daughters.
Well, I think as an author, you too, and others in this group might find it that we are observant. I kind of have always looked for patterns. And I distinctly remember, and this is also years ago, I think the early 80s, I was on my bike. I was on my way to my cousin, who is about 7 years older than me. I was on Leidseplein. If you've ever been to Amsterdam, you might know where that is. And suddenly it dawned on me that she and I we're not only good friends, we were not only cousins, we were good friends, but we were both the eldest of 4. So then I thought, wow, maybe there's something there. So all these years, I kind of kept track on that. And then I noticed that my best friends are eldest daughters. And I don't interview them. I don't, ask, but we kind of, are drawn together. Birds of a feather. And so that pattern kept coming back to me. And at some point, do you want me to go on?
Yes. Well, I mean, you've written a number of books. Where did the eldest daughter effect come into the story of your writing?
Yeah, this is my 3rd book. It's my 3rd book. My first book was translated into English, well, by me. It's called The Childhood Conclusions Fix. After having a communications agency and kind of having an awareness opening that business isn't only for the good of the planet and the people, I had to find it a way. I did a healing school in Miami, and the theory, the psychological theory that was based on was Wilhelm Reich. And I thought, wow, why didn't I know this before? Why don't we all know this? Let me write a book about it. So that's when I wrote about the childhood conclusions, very big conclusions we draw when we're tiny. And then my 2nd book is called A Light. And actually the title came from being in London and being on a tube, I think, or a bus, and the driver saying, please alight for the museums. And I thought, what a beautiful verb. So in me came that sentence, no, you are a light already. So this is my most spiritual book, kind of a hidden pearl. And so at that time, I had a publisher, and I was at the publisher's, and we were at the coffee machine, or he was making, not a machine, I think he was making coffee, and we were kind of talking, and he talked about his life. And he said, well, when I come home, my eldest daughter is there, and she's very serious, and she just sits there contemplating what's going on in the world. And then my son rushes in and talks about his hockey game. And then my other daughter rushes in and talks about whatever. And he says, I see myself kind of go off with them and leave my eldest daughter kind of brooding on the sofa. And I looked at him and said, Daniel, you're talking about my life. You're talking about Eldest Daughters. And so there and then we said there might be a book in this.
Great. Yes. Well, I'm so glad there was. So what was the research that you did that really provides the basis of the book? Obviously your own experience and your friend's experience, but you did some really interesting research that really crystallized the characteristics and the way eldest daughters are.
Well, I had this dream of being together only with firstborn women. And in my head, I called this the eldest girls convent. That was kind of had lived in me for a while. So when the publisher said yes to the book, kind of there and then on that very, impulsive kind of morning, then I thought, oh, I want to co-author this with my friend Lisette Schuiemaker, who is the daughter of an eldest daughter. I'm the daughter of an only child, you're the daughter of an eldest daughter.
Yep.
Lissette's daughter, and she also has an eldest daughter. So I thought she also brings, I have no children, so she brings, how is it to mother a girl who is the firstborn? And then I said to her, I have had this secret dream of a day. And so she kind of, she's a very good interviewer, very good journalist. So she kind of pried. And then we came to this idea, we can just organize a day for firstborn women only. And that'll be the basis of our research. So we did this at a film studio run by Lisa's husband, where we had 100 women who had absolutely no idea what they were going to do, what they were in. And they could choose workshops that other eldest daughters had designed for us with the idea that we would, gain material. Also on the walls, they had little stickers and said, your best friend is an only child, an eldest daughter, a middle child, or the youngest. And your partner is an only child, an eldest boy, a middle child. So we had lots and lots and lots of, I have pictures, I went through them. It's like my whole living room is kind of full of these huge papers with information. And I was like, oh my goodness, now what do we do?
Amazing.
Yeah, but it was a wonderful day. It was a wonderful day. And I thought the whole atmosphere in my mind would be like a reunion, but a reunion with people you've never met, but you know them anyway. And that is exactly what happened. Women would come in and kind of hang their coats and say, of how many are you? Oh, I am of 3, or I am of 2. And then they would just walk off. And it was hard sometimes to get them to be silent and go to the next, part of the program.
That's absolutely amazing. And it is true. There is a sort of an unfathomable link between people. I mean, I can now pick, thanks to your book, I can now pick eldest daughters really easily, and I'm very rarely wrong. But I'm just going to ask whoever's on the call, would you like to put in the comments where you come in your family of origin? So if you're an eldest daughter, that will be fascinating, but also tell us if you're an only child, or if you're a middle child or a youngest child, because I'd like to kind of talk about all of those characteristics. So Lisette, let's start with it with eldest daughters. What are the typical characteristics of eldest daughters?
Well, I'm sure that everybody on the call will kind of have something pop into their minds. We asked this of our 100 participants. And there was like, we asked the oldest woman who had come, she'd come with her daughter and her granddaughter, all firstborns. And so, reverently we asked her, and she said, responsibility. And there was like a roar, kind of, yay, that is her middle name. We are so responsible. And also we are so dutiful,
Yeah.
We always do our duty, even when no one looks, we still kind of clean the kitchen and make sure the cupboards are organized, and give us a task, we'll do it. We're also quite hands-on, because from an early age, we've been given tasks to do that we had no idea how to do them, because we did not have an example. We were the example.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then there's this thoughtfulness. Very often we're not kind of, the funniest person in the room, but we're the most thoughtful person in the room. And we can be fun. We can absolutely be fun, but that's more to the youngest very often. They're kind of the comic in the family. And there's this aspect of caring and protectiveness, of thinking the others need, protection or need to be cared for. And so those we thought were the basic 5 characteristics.
Yeah, they ring extremely true with me. I always think of myself as really not much fun, but I'm very nice.
Oh, you are so nice. For me, you are so much fun.
Well, sometimes. I don't mean I can't be fun, but yes, I'm never the life and soul of the party. But Geraldine says that she is the eldest daughter of a younger brother, but a daughter before her died very young. And she says, I've always wanted to find that older sister who would take the burden, but no such luck. Oh, that's really touching, Geraldine.
Touching.
Debbie says,
the naming of the burden, that
yes,
it has been a burden. And of course, if a sibling before you has died, there's kind of a double burden.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to live.
Yeah.
And you need to kind of maybe almost live twice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So Michaela says, oh yes, that's me as a youngest child, definitely the comic of the family. Debbie says, Lisette, you're describing my older sister exactly. Fair enough. Debbie and Michaela are both the youngest of 2 daughters, and Claire is the middle child of the 4th child of 6. So we've got an interesting selection of people here. So okay, so that's the eldest daughter. What are middle children typically? Characteristically?
Children, of course, if you're like Claire, the 4th of 6, people have told me there are different kind of groupings within a larger family. Sometimes you have the youngest of the older set and the oldest of the younger set, and then there might be, so there's different kind of roles there. But say in a family of 3 like yours, the middle child is also the one that makes us into the eldest, because we are the ones who've been an only child.
Yeah.
And because we were the first, all our parents' joy, because there's research, parents are never as happy as when the birth of their first child, but also all their anxiety is on us. And then the second one comes along, which for the eldest, it's like you're the sun, all the planets revolve around you, and all of a sudden you're not. So it's been called a moment of dethronement.
Yeah, I really resonate with that as well.
But there's an anthroposophical view that Carl Koenig wrote a book about brothers and sisters in the 50s or 60s, and he said it's a big surprise for the second one coming in and finding, hey, there's a child already.
Somebody already there. Yes, that's a good point too. Yes,
there's a child already there, and so. The second one has to kind of break open. I was like, this is like the holy triangle, the father, the mother, and the child. And then, us as firstborns think, if you just, go here and do as I do, then I can keep this triangle intact and you'll just be there. But the second one is tasked with breaking this open and forging a place. It needs to be a square now. And so Kevin Leman, who is an American author who's written extensively about this, says, the rule of thumb is the first and the second will develop diametrically different. And so in my case, this was really true. My mother, upon reading this book I think she was then, what was it, like 87. And she said, I finally understand the dynamics between you and your brother. And I said, I finally understand them too. because I became like the proverbial good girl. But the more I became a good girl, the more he became like, the naughty one and the protesting everything. So that is a dynamic between the first and the second. And then the third kind of comes in, and that dynamic keeps playing out and kind of looks up and goes like, the third is often very diplomatic, and if they're not the youngest. And then the youngest has, of course, a place of their own. But middle children, there's one book is called The Secret Power of Middle Children, which I would recommend to everybody who is a middle child. But middle, of course, can describe like the fourth of six or the middle of three, or
yes, it's a
big container
big grouping
that middle children are in.
Yes, indeed. But then, so what role does the youngest typically play then?
Well, the youngest, just imagine you're in your crib and there's kind of new faces all the time because your siblings bring friends to see this little thing that is now lying there. So they're often very sociable. There's books about, what kind of jobs fit best. And youngest are always in the category of marketing, of communications, they regard everyone they meet as a friend they just haven't met yet before. And very often, to grab the attention, they also become like the court jester. They know that by pulling a funny face, even if they can't understand what's being said, they just pull a funny face, and then they have the whole table laughing and all the attention is on them. They can be sometimes, in our view, our stern eldest daughter view, pretend to be helpless. We will never be helpless. We will never ask for help as a rule.
Oh, so
they
true.
Are not, yes. They don't think twice about, can you help me this? Can you help me that?
Yeah.
Why not? There were always people around to help them.
Yes, absolutely.
And our mothers remind us, help the little one.
Yeah, I'm just going to read out a couple of things. So Geraldine says, I think I rebelled at cleaning and organizing, but paved the way in negotiations with adults. That's I think, good eldest daughter behavior. And Aisha says, I'm the eldest daughter of an eldest daughter and totally identify with the responsibility and thoughtful side of our personalities. This seems to get passed on in my work too. So I know that Aisha is a coach consultant in the financial world. So yes, Michaela, who's the youngest, says, ha ha, that's me. And Debbie, who's also the youngest, says, ha ha, Michaela, you and me. And Geraldine says, this is so interesting. I find helpless people everywhere I go. And yes, so do I, absolutely. And I'm sure that's why, that's partly why I enjoy mentoring people, because not that I think all my mentees are helpless, but I can help them. I mean, that's
in a way, I mean, it is so interesting how, psychology, because there are so many variables the first one a girl and then a boy, how much time is in between, what happened to the parents. They can't really research this, but everybody I've spoken to, and I've spoken about family dynamics and effective birth order for a year or a year and a half, when I was researching and writing the book, because everybody recognizes this and everybody acknowledges that, our training is so much within the family. You train each other as children, and these roles get distributed and are also quite fixed.
So are we kind of stuck with them? I mean, should we try and get out of them or change ourselves, or is it just best to make the most of the benefits that we have or can bring?
Well, I think writing the book, the idea of writing the book is anything that is like an automatic reaction that doesn't bring you where you want to be, you better shed light on. And I think there's lots of benefits of being an eldest daughter. We are pioneers. We kind of do things that we've never done before because, just look at a little girl walking to school. She has no idea what school is, and yet she just goes there. We've all done that as eldest, as the first ones. So there's lots of, and there's benefits in being dutiful and thoughtful and caring and responsible, but not as a default position. So the whole thing of Lisa and me was, if you're conscious, just bite your tongue. When there's a question, who's going to do this? Just go like,
don't offer.
I'm not going to say, just sit on your hands, because one will fly up before you know it. And there's plenty of other people who can do it. And there's no need to think that if you don't do it, it won't be done well.
No, that's a problem too, isn't it? I mean, Geraldine says we can see what needs to happen for other people, and clearly some of them don't seem to be able to see what happens to themselves. Now, I've just lost a comment there that Butuke Jones said about being the eldest daughter of one parent but not of another, which is interesting, of course, with a blended family or a second husband or wife. So that's an interesting one. Did you have any information on that?
Well, at some point, Mies came back from holidays and I had researched all the royal families of Europe. And she said, why? And I said, because I'm interested in them. And the interesting thing is all the princes that are going to be kings all marry eldest daughters. Our prince, Willem Alexander, married Maxima Zorgieta, and she is the eldest of her mother, but not of her father. So, but she really behaves as an eldest. And I think it very much depends if the families are then put together, and it also depends on the age. I mean, when you're young and the families are kind of live together, then the oldest will be more the oldest, and you're not so much the example that you are when you are, the oldest without other siblings from another marriage.
Yeah.
But if you're not, I think Maxima very much had an eldest daughter upbringing, and so you can really look at how did that happen for us. I also know of people who divorced later, and then those families came together. Then the roles are already fixed. Then the younger siblings, my eldest sister, not that person.
Yes, I mean, I have a kind of interesting situation in that I was married when I was quite young. I had two sons, and then I got divorced, and then I got married again and adopted two daughters who were much younger, and so were brought up as a separate family. And so I kind of have an eldest daughter, although she's not my eldest child. And she has, I think she has because I think she's aware of older children. I think she has some characteristics, but not others. So that's quite interesting.
I think, of course, you also, I mean, our parents, when you're a first-time parent, you know this better than I do, because I've also written a book called Childless Living, because I have.
Yes, it's a
very. So you know this better than I do, but with the first child, the parent is delighted and nervous. And
absolutely.
The third one, even if it's a new family, I mean, some things will work out, whatever you do, and you don't need to pamper or be there all the time. And so the mother or the parents are really different.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yes, that's absolutely true, because I wasn't a first-time parent when my daughter came into our family. Yes, I hadn't thought of that before. I was an experienced parent, and quite an old one as well. So, I probably put less on her, in a sense, less expectation, and yes. Anyway, Lisette, your the eldest daughter effect has been translated into how many languages now? How many copies of the book are there?
Here, we wrote it in Dutch. Then I was very fortunate to find an eldest daughter at the Frankfurt Book Fair. And she was delighted to have it in English. So I translated it, and it was corrected, of course. And then they sold it to a Korean publisher. So this is the Korean version, which is a very beautiful.
It is very different. I like that rather romantic image of eldest daughters looking at the moon.
Yes, it's lovely. It is so. And it's so interesting that here and there are English words. And I really cherished this.
Wow, lovely. And have you spoken to Korean eldest daughters? Did you go to Korea and
Unfortunately not, but I did not go to Korea, or I did go once, but that was before the book. But I have spoken to Korean eldest daughters, and at some point, a woman from Korea showed me there is a whole Instagram page with, you know, this image all around and yellowed pages and discussions that I have no idea what they're saying.
well,
But I was
no.
in touch with one of the readers, and she said that she was actually surprised at recognizing herself so well because of their more collective culture and
Yes.
our more individualistic culture.
Yes, that is
No
interesting.
difference. The dynamics are in the family are exactly the same.
Really, really. Oh, that is very interesting. And also, I think in countries that are well, in cultures, I'm not quite sure where I'm thinking of in a way, but where, you know, children are more quickly assimilated into the working kind of side of the family, whatever that is. Eldest daughters become very much the sort of default mother's help, don't they? And
absolutely. I've spoke to a woman who grew up in Morocco. She lives here in the Netherlands now, and her mother had a baby almost, you know, every year. And at baby number 5, she said, "Here, this one is yours." And you know, so
wow.
yeah, she was like 8 herself or so.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And she was just tasked with looking after that little girl.
Mm.
And it was actually a beautiful story because at some point in their lives, they addressed this, and they said, "We have a strange relationship because you pretend to be my mother and you're not. You're my sister, and I pretend to be your child and I'm not. I'm your sister." And so only at a later phase did they really become sisters.
How interesting.
Yeah. But it's heavy. Just imagine. I mean, I cannot completely imagine, you know, a life where before school you tend to the goats as she did, and then tend to your baby sister, and then run off to school, and then come home to do lots of chores around the house. But yeah.
That's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh gosh, I had a question for you that it's just gone out of my head. How annoying. But well, one of the things I want to ask you about is that you're about to host an eldest daughter retreat. So, and I know you've done that before. So tell us about that.
Happy to. So my dream of being with eldest daughters only, you know, happened on the research day, but it's continuing to happen. I was on the board of the Findhorn Foundation, which is a spiritual learning center in the north of Scotland, near Inverness. And when I was working on the book, at some point, we looked around at all of us women in the board, 5 women. Guess what? All of us.
No, really? All eldest daughters?
All eldest daughters, all these beautiful types that like to take responsibility in that way. I mean, there's many ways of taking responsibility, but we just like to be on boards and organizing things. And so one of them, Helen Wildsmith, said, "Why don't you organize a retreat? Because it's good to become aware of these patterns. Also, we are often women in leadership, and this is just a different angle to look at how we lead, how we fashion our work, how we are, you know, professionally, but also personally." And so, so we did an eldest daughter retreat, and she came with her mother, which was lovely. We once had 3 generations in the room, a grandmother, a mother, and a daughter, which was absolutely lovely. Or somebody came with her niece, somebody came with her stepdaughter. And we've had, women come, and we're facilitating this with the 3 of us, Jill Emsley, Jane Sturland from Veleda, UK. Jill Emsley is a long-term Findhorn resident and an amazing, facilitator. And so we're looking forward to hosting it again in March, 26th to 29th of March, up in Findhorn, which is will just be reopening. So again, we will
Wow.
kind of be a pioneering program there.
Oh, right. So Debbie's put the link to the Eldest Daughter retreat in the comments here.
Great.
So how long does it last for, and what will happen on the retreat? What can you expect if you want to sign up for it?
Yeah, so we start on a Saturday afternoon, which gives those from other countries time to arrive. So we start with tea and, you know, registration and some of where are we and how does this work here. And then in the first evening, we have an introduction round, and that is always already really delicious, because people will say, you know, I'm the eldest of two, I'm one of three. I mean, and there's just this immediate, you know, recognition. The whole gestalt, so to say, is in the room. And then, you know, there's two components. There's the component of Jill kind of leading us through like exercises in which we look at patterns, we look at how things we would like to change or we would shed light on. And there's also the Jane brought in the Velina side, that we have an evening of pampering each other and of masks and foot baths, and we will have probably a fire to let go what we want to let go of. We'll have a walk on the beach. So there's lots of kind of group time, there's individual time, there's friendship time, and wow. So this will be my fourth one, and I can't wait. It's really a lovely way to be together and to also laugh. You know, when you go to a meal and somebody starts to organize us all, the other ones are just like, oh, it could be me, but it's you now.
But yes, no, actually, it must be very relaxing to be in a group of eldest daughters who you don't have, so you don't have to do everything. There's always, you know, there's other people who can offer and who you trust as well to do things. It's very easy, I think, as an eldest daughter not to trust the abilities of other people, and perhaps it's
and we're often very wrong there. We're very, very wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is overestimation of ourselves and an underestimation of the others who have grown up, become, you know, responsible
Indeed.
in their own way.
Absolutely.
It's not like we are responsible and the others are not. It's just we come to it from, you know, being given the responsibility as a 3-year-old, you know, you mind a little one while I'll go in the store. Oh my God. You know? So that's how it has been fostered in us. But of course, other people are just, you know, as capable and responsible and dutiful as we are. It's just
absolutely
a different place.
Yes. I mean, on the downside, and I can see this in my own life, I think people can see eldest daughters as being bossy and a bit domineering and controlling.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, no, that is, you know, my co-author, I'm quite tall and Vis is quite small, and she kind of was not aware at all. So at some point she was cooking for friends and we were kind of in the midst of the book, and she said, you know, there's this whole thing about being bossy. I'm not bossy, am I? And everybody just gaped at her. It was like, I know I am bossy. I really know I am bossy. I enjoy my bossiness.
Quite, yes. So Debbie says, yes, my sister always thinks I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm 56 and she's 59. And Geraldine says, I bought a house.
Give her the book. Give her the book.
Give her the book, absolutely, yes.
Have her come to the retreat.
Yes, indeed.
We'll re-educate her.
Yes, and Geraldine says, I bought a house with another eldest daughter friend, and we used to take turns to micromanage. I think that's brilliant. Sharing the responsibility. Aisha says, oh yes, bossy but well-meaning, really well-meaning. And Geraldine says, I finally accept that my brother is not completely helpless. That's all hopeless. So yeah, a lot of recognition there. I've remembered the thing I was going to ask you, Lisette. As I think, as an eldest daughter, I saw myself as the default thing. So, and that was being female. So I'm wondering whether eldest daughters are kind of natural feminists.
This is an interesting question I haven't addressed. So when you say you saw yourself as a default, by being a woman? What can you say more?
I mean, you know, I, as you know, the wonderful first child, the child, as you know, my first 2 years would have been, you know, I'm a girl. Girls are it. And then I had two younger brothers. And I sort of thought, I mean, I didn't feel at any point, I don't know when things must have changed at some point, but I felt sorry for them for being boys. I actually thought physically that they were rather ridiculous. And so you know, not the kind of not the kind of thing that men put about that women have penis envy. On the other, quite on the contrary, if I think about it, I thought, really, how ridiculous, you know. But you know, because I'm the eldest and a girl, I must be the best, was, you know, my kind of default position for quite a long time. And
wow. How interesting. We didn't really address this. Wies has a sister, younger sister, and it was somebody at some point in the eldest daughter retreat who said, similar like you, like, I must have been so wonderful, they wanted another one. Yeah. Whereas there's others, I was more like, oh, I thought it was wonderful, and now they have a new one. So I must kind of earn my way in again. But to natural feminists, I don't know. Are there any comments about that?
Yes. Has anybody got any thoughts about that? Whether you thought?
I think we are pioneers. Simone de Beauvoir certainly was an eldest daughter.
Yes, Michaela, and I suppose it depends on whether you are then followed by a brother or a sister.
Yeah.
That will be. But yes, I mean, I certainly thought, oh, a boy, that's an odd thing to be, you know, sort of like, I mean, I didn't think that consciously, but in retrospect, I mean, I can sort of see that as a sort of attitude, really. You can't be as good as me because I'm a girl and I was the first. So, yeah. So by default, you know, boys are second best. They come second, so they must be second. But Michaela just says this is so interesting. If anybody else has got any thoughts about that, I'd like to hear them, see them.
There are, of course, also cultures where you're a bit of a disappointment.
Oh, of course,
you're a girl,
yes.
And you're the first, and
indeed, yeah. I mean, my mother is she's an eldest daughter, but then she has three sisters. And my grandmother went on having children until she got a boy, and she finally got a fifth child was a boy. So I can imagine that certainly the third, and no, there are four girls, and yes, and then a boy. I can imagine that the third and fourth girl,
wrong again,
were, you know, did not feel highly valued.
Yeah. And there's cultures, of course, where that still is the case, although less and less.
Yeah. Oh, yes. No, of course. Yeah. Geraldine says, I was often told I was too pushy or forward because I assumed I had the right to speak up. Debbie says, my parents wanted me to be a boy and I was to be called Richard. I've always felt that I was in the way because of that, especially a child. Oh, Debbie, that's bad. I hope you don't.
I think she speaks for many.
Yeah, indeed. And Michaela says it would be interesting to look at the prominent feminists through history and where they are in the family. Absolutely, yes. No, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? To see where the Pankhursts, whether they were all eldest. Well, they can't all have been there. No, there was a mother and a daughter, and yeah, probably. Anyway, yes.
Yeah, I did look into that with the A Childless Living book. Because there I found, you know, many of these pioneering feminists did not have children. But then I didn't look. I only know Simone de Beauvoir, who, of course, was, in my eyes, like, you know, very staunch feminist with her, the second sex, actually. Yeah.
Yes. Michaela says, my parents wanted a boy. I was Anthony. Gosh, that's very interesting that we know those things. I bet that doesn't happen nearly so often with boys who being told that their parents wanted a girl. Yeah, wow. Well, and Geraldine,
of course there are. This is another aspect, because there are those who are second and they have a brother above them, Some of them even sneaked into the eldest daughter day, the research day, where we had said, no, 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 you need to be a firstborn. They said, but we are eldest daughters because he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
A friend of mine who was Irish said, you know, he wears the crown and I do the work. You know,
gosh, that's even worse. That's so unfair.
That's so unfair. She was really so upset that she couldn't come to the eldest daughter retreat.
Yes, yes.
But it is a different experience. We called them then functional eldest daughters.
Right. And what's the crossover then? Where are they like eldest daughters and where do they differ?
Yeah, they differ because if you have an older brother, like many of us have secretly coveted, you know, this older brother.
Yes, completely.
So you would know boys when you were 13 and 14 quite naturally, instead of, you know, how do you meet boys out there? And, you know, he would be having some of the burden of having to do his homework because, you know, and then you can be in the slipstream. He fights for more pocket money. He fights for being allowed to come home later. You let him I let some of my younger brother do that actually, but he does all that. But so that's the difference. But the resemblance with eldest daughters is kind of looking around and seeing what needs to happen in a family and who needs care and when your mother needs support and how your parents are doing and being given those tasks. There's also research that parents talk more with their daughters than with their sons. You know, it's still to this day, they do things with sons and they talk with their daughters and they talk about feelings. So they talk more also about their own feelings with daughters, and with boys, they go out and kick a ball. I mean, it's so stereotyped, but it's still true.
Yeah, that's a bit depressing, isn't it? Geraldine says Irish families are terrible at that. Boys are on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Aisha says, my dad's mum wanted me to be a boy. My parents were happy I was a healthy child. Well, that's good. And Geraldine says, I remember family days. Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Child,
Yeah. Geraldine says, I remember family days out being ruined because the needs of the screaming toddler would dominate. Hard to please an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old. Yes, I guess the gap between the children is relevant as well. And how that plays out, how interesting.
Yeah.
Gosh,
this is so vivid because I can immediately see that happen. You know, you are this 8-year-old and you wanted to, and then this toddler just ruins it all. That's why I wanted to come together with only us, you know, that would not happen. And absolutely. And also there's a difference. People ask, is there a difference between eldest sons and eldest daughters? Now, I haven't studied eldest sons, but there is some information that, you know, when the moment of dethronement happens, which is, I mean, it is even physically, the lap of your mother is now taken very often.
Yeah.
So girls kind of lean towards their father, which, and in my case, it certainly did, can start a bit of a love affair of the father-daughter thing. And you know my father, he was like a impressive, you know, powerful man. So my boyfriends always had to kind of live up to that standard until I was able to let that go. But so the girl kind of goes to the father and then they bond there. But also a girl in grief swallows it often and becomes like the good girl. And thinks, okay, how can I be good so I still can belong to this family, so they will still like me and not have all their attention on the other one. Whereas boys, and this is all very, very general, but, you know, generally kind of act out, you know, they throw their toys through the room, they break something. And so it's out there, whereas we kind of internalize and then figure out a strategy in our, you know, very young minds of how to deal with this sudden change, because you've seen it coming.
Yeah,
You've
Yeah.
seen the baby grow, but you have no idea what's going to happen when the next one comes.
No, fascinating. Oh, Claire has told us that Emmeline Pankhurst had an older brother, but he died aged 3. So otherwise, she was the eldest of 5 daughters. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And Michaela says, I just realized I used to go to football training with my dad every week, not because I really wanted to, because I wanted to make up for the fact that I wasn't a boy. Yeah. Goodness. So many nuances in our families and our behavior with our interactions with our parents and siblings.
Yes, and it is, it is such a fascinating lens to look at even now when we are, I was on a board and I was always having this kind of trouble with one of the men on the board. And at some point I realized I'm just, enacting my strife with my brother, but he's not my brother.
No.
And it was hard to kind of take that off him and see him as the person he was. So these early dynamics, keep coming back until we recognize them.
Yeah. Interestingly, my business partner, Joe, I am the oldest daughter, and he is the youngest son with 3 elder sisters. So we play out that dynamic sometimes, I'm sure, where
that's an ideal combination, Lucy.
Well, it can be ideal and it can sometimes not be ideal, shall we say.
Well,
no, mostly it is. I do think that is a reason why we work so well together, though. I think there is definitely a positive side to that.
Well, we can talk about partners. There is a book about birth order and love, which was written by, he was an English teacher before he fully went into this topic. And he says, the youngest of sisters is a man who comes from heaven, and my partner is the youngest of 3 sisters and then a brother. And so how I envision it is like Jos, my partner, kind of looked at all the antics of his sister and kind of has learned to navigate them, to know that, moods will pass and passions will run, but they will also run their course. And then you can talk to these women, normally again.
Yes. I actually realized that I mean, among the eldest daughters that I know, I find quite a lot of them quite intimidating myself. I don't feel I live up to some of the eldest daughters I know who are very high achievers and appear very confident, I think. And I don't feel that I'm like that at all, but I do see other eldest daughters being like that.
I can imagine people being intimidated by you.
Oh, really? Oh, dear.
Yes. I mean, you are such a presence and you do such amazing work with this circle and with all the books you get out, the knowledge you bring into the world, the way you help people find a platform and find the footing of bringing their expertise. And I mean, whenever we compare, usually we don't compare favorably, but
no, that's very true. We probably all feel like sort of.
You are wonderful, Lucy, and always happy.
Oh well, thank you, thank you for that, Lisette. Well, I guess we should. Oh gosh, Michaela says, do only daughters have hyper traits of eldest daughters?
What does that mean?
I'm not quite. I think. Were you talking about the sort of comparison with eldest sons, or are you asking, Michaela, if other daughters, not eldest daughters, also have some of the traits of eldest daughters?
Well, when I wrote a book, one of my nieces, who is a middle child, and who very much has this sentence, I'm a person too, which is kind of a life sentence, or not a life sentence, but like a motto of middle children. Right. And also the youngest was very annoyed that I had found that eldest daughters study longer, are more eager to go to school, to achieve things. And she said, that's such nonsense. There's just different ways of being intelligent. And so the youngest are socially apt and intelligent, and everybody has their intelligences. Although there is research that eldest, both boys and girls, are more intelligent because we're these diligent study types. But my nieces were really not the eldest one, of course, but the others were like, I am a responsible person too.
Yeah,
that is true. But it's just, they come to it from a different angle, not from being trained or being given these, we are given these huge, to lead a toddler, take care of a toddler when there's busy traffic and your mother's just, run to get something from the car, and this toddler doesn't really acknowledge your authority. So you die 100 deaths, that's how we get to our responsibility. So I think ours is a bit fraught with a scare, with some fear. And also this whole being dutiful is if we don't do it, then, our parents can't count on us, and then maybe we can't count on them either.
Yeah.
The other positions, I don't want to monopolize being thoughtful or caring or responsible in any way.
No, Michaela's actually, sorry, I've totally misread what Michaela says. She means single daughters, only children. Do they only daughters? Do they possess the eldest daughter traits but stronger?
Well, of course, the only child never has the experience that I described of the triangle being forced open, but in a way they are more like little adults because they are around adults so much.
Yes, so, they're never dethroned. They never go through that.
And that is an issue in itself, because once they go out into the big wide world, they are not the princes and princesses they might think themselves to be. But so they are more like little adults than us, because then once a sibling is born, you can really be children together, and you can also bond together against your parents in wanting ice cream or whatever, whereas an only child is very often asked to be reasonable, and it's about dinner time, and they have no natural allies also in educating the parents.
Yeah And I'm sure it's been said in various forms, but you're the eldest, you should know better. What are you doing behaving like that? It's a sort of is something that gets said to probably all eldest children, but particularly eldest daughters, I suspect.
It was so funny at the original Eldest Daughter Day, 8th of March, 2014, a sentence like that could still spark such anger in women of over 60s. And they always told me I had to know better, but I just wanted to be a child too.
Yeah. No, it's our tragedy, isn't it? We're so hard done by.
And it's also interesting that hardly any eldest daughter would want to trade their place.
No, indeed, absolutely. That's so true. You certainly wouldn't want to go further down the scale. That's a very interesting point.
Yeah.
Oh, Lisette, thank you so much for this. This has been fascinating, and I can see that it's given a lot of people food for thought. It's always, every time we talk about it, something new comes up. It's so fascinating. So Lisette, you still got space on the Eldest Daughters retreat if anybody wants to sign up for it. Okay, the link is there.
We have
how many people come on it?
All the rules, of course, that are COVID bound, and make sure there's a safe environment. And if we need to cancel at the last minute, you'll be refunded. If you need to cancel at the last minute because of that, you'll be refunded. So
it sounds wonderful.
All these things, trust us.
Yes. Oh no, absolutely. And I would love to come on it, but I've got so many responsibilities at home. There are people I can't let get on with themselves. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm kind of joking, but that will be what stopped me coming on it. I'll have to think about it. But Lisa, it's been absolutely lovely. Thank you so much. It's been lovely for me talking to you as one of my oldest friends, and the subject is of intense fascination, and I think it's been, I hope it's been really, really useful and interesting to other people too. So
Yeah, and I
goodbye.
could just say, if you're at a party and you don't know what to say, just ask about people's place in the birth order, and you will have an interesting conversation, because everybody has memories and hang-ups and fun stories. And so I did that for a year and a half. It was great. It's a great topic to talk about with friends, and also with people you don't know at all.
That is an absolutely brilliant idea, especially for eldest daughters who think they might not be the most fun person at the party.
Good icebreaker.
It's going to make you the most fun person ever, isn't it?
Yes.
Great. Lovely. Thank you so much, Lisette. And goodbye to everyone for now. Bye, Lisette. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.